Motorhead Garage, the program that each week introduces you to and shows you how to install the latest in exciting and innovative products for your vehicle. Motorhead Garage is presented by NHOU Protective Coatings. Now here's your host, Dave Dobson.
This is Motorhead Garage presented by NHOU Protective Coatings, and this is a 1975 Camaro with some 1970 mixed in on the front end. It's been converted to a drag racing car, Danny. Steel rubber, you guys look at a lot of old vehicles like this. What are some of the things that start to go wrong with an older car?
Well, it's crazy to think about. This thing's already almost 50 years old. The weather stripping goes bad after 25 years or so. Whenever your door seal starts to break down, that lets water in. Water is bad for metal. It just exacerbates the problem. So you start getting rust, and you want to make sure everything is sealed as possible.
And also for wind noise if you're on the road, not so much for a drag racing car.
You don't want wind noise while you're drag racing either.
It keeps the rattles down. It makes you more aerodynamic on the drag strip too. And this is kind of the poster child for seals going bad, and that led to that hole down there in the rocker panel once the water started getting down in there. And you can see the old seal here. This is what we took off of this vehicle.
Yeah, that's all that was left.
So a new seal is going to be a lot more durable from steel rubber. Why is that?
As far as the seal goes, we design it from originals, make sure it fits and performs just like the factory. But we do have some more modern materials. The metal cores that are in the molded ends are brass. That holds onto rubber a lot better. It's not going to corrode, let go of the rubber, make it last a lot longer. As well as the rubber itself is an EPDM rubber, and that's UV resistant, ozone weather, so that's going to last a lot longer than the original material.
We've already changed this driver's side seal on both sides here. What was that process like?
For this particular seal, you got to peel back the door panel a little bit. We were able to do that just by undoing a few screws at the end, and that gives you access to the molded end. Then there's a couple screws that hold the molded end on. Take those off. The rest of the seal is supposed to be held on with clips if the seal's there. So we took the clips out, and essentially it goes back on the exact same way. Line up the molded ends, set your screws, put your clips in, and that's it.
First, you should look in Steel Rubber's catalog to see if they have a replacement part for what you're doing. If they don't have it, why do folks want to hold on to that old seal?
So since we make our parts from originals, this part included, we take a customer's original in and we can make it. That's how all of our parts are made. Someone asks, hey, do you have this? No one else does. That might be something we're interested in. So look on our website, get our catalog, make sure you have a replacement part, and if there is, hold on to your original until you just don't need it anymore. Too many times people throw away their originals and they regret it.
Now let's look at the next seal here around the door. This is part of a kit you sell along with this door.
Yep.
The roof rail here, this one is really crispy. It's an old brittle seal.
Yeah, so this is an old seal. This one has a molded corner at the top, and then it's supposed to have molded ends, and those are now missing. But this one is super easy to replace. It's just held into a C channel. It's just kind of tucked in. They can just pull right out. Sometimes you may run into glue.
How do you remove it? If you've got the old glue and you've got to take this thing off and it's pulling apart.
So you'll want to take off as much rubber as possible, and then we recommend a 3M adhesive remover. It's not going to harm your paint, but it works really good at taking away all the adhesive and gunk that builds up under there.
What kind of seal do you want all the way around?
You know, you want a good surface to glue on. It doesn't have to be pristine or anything, but you want a good, clean surface that glue will hold on to.
Excellent. And here's the new seal from Steel Rubber.
Yeah, so what I would do is line up the corner, and we got our trusty tuck tool, and basically we will make sure that this rubber gets behind the trim here.
Can I find install videos and things at steelrubber.com?
Absolutely, yep, install videos, tech tips. A lot of times we get questions about someone who's trying to make something work. There's all kinds of stuff, and if you don't find the information you need online, we do have a great customer service staff.
I know I touched on this, but one thing that blows me away about Steel Rubber, if you let them know what make and model of the vehicle and what year you have, you're going to get an entire catalog just for your vehicle with every single part that Steel Rubber makes. And I think that goes a long way toward customer service for sure.
You know, it's one of those things where you're working on the car, we're the rubber experts, we can tell you exactly what goes on it. It just makes it so simple to go through the entire car. You know you need to replace the door and the roof rail, but there's a lot of little parts you may not be aware of.
Well, we're going to wrap this up, and while we do that, we're going to step away for a little bit. And this car still needs a little more attention on the trunk seal as well. So just a little bit later in the show, we're going to get to that. We've got some more cool products coming up next here on Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings. Do not go away.
Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings, is brought to you by RockAuto.com. All the parts your car will ever need. Top Lift Pros. Live outside the box with Top Lift Pros. Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. NH Oil Undercoating, the official oil-based rust prevention system. And by BrothersTrucks.com, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration.
Welcome back to Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings. We're talking about paint chips. And I know if you're like me, one little paint chip is going to keep you up nights because you know it's going to mean a costly trip to the shop. It's going to be in for weeks, but that's not really the way anymore. Thanks to Cosmo Recon. How is Cosmo Recon different from the other systems out there, Zach?
It's a very good question. So the #1 thing that stands out with our system is our color matching system. With this system, we can match over 8,000 colors and variants and match any color of car with a simple color code that you find on the side of the door jamb. We're able to make multiple different amounts with this, and we can convert it from an acrylic to a urethane and also make a single stage color for spot blends and other repairs.
8,000 different colors, that's amazing.
8,000.
I've seen other ones out there that have prescribed colors. You can only get what they're selling.
Right.
So you can mix any variation here.
Exactly.
What's the process like to make those mixes?
Once you find the color code from your vehicle, you're going to go to our color database system. You're going to put it in, and it'll give you multiple different variants for that color. You're going to come to your bottles here, and they each have a specific color code right up on the top. What we are going to do with that is follow the recipe, as we call it, and it's going to give you the different way out to each individual color to get your exact color match.
And we're going to see two different processes here. First of all, this brand new car over here, you put a big gouge in the side of it. We all gasped when you did it, and you made a fix to that. We'll talk about that process in a second. First, let's talk about paint reconditioning here, Lindsay. This process is used for these little chips and things we saw when this vehicle came in here. It's the sandblasting on the front of it. How does this process work?
So this is a little bit different than traditional touch-up where you just dab the big spots that you would see. This process actually fills in about 90–95% of all the rock chips. It's a multi-step process that you get to achieve filling in the smaller chips as well as the bigger chips.
What are the steps then?
You prep the surface, and then you use an applicator pad and you rub in and fill the chips, and then you just take our erase seal and remove it, and anything that's on the clear coat will be erased.
So I kind of liken this to grout, where you grout over the whole thing and
Exactly.
it fills in all the cracks and all the holes in this case.
Exactly.
Now, this isn't your full-time job. You're not an automotive person.
Yeah, I work in the office.
So you're not a body person. You're able to make this look this good. How long did it take you to learn this technique?
To be quite honest with you, I've probably done a handful of cars throughout my time with Cosmo Recon, just as demonstrational purposes, and it's really easy to learn and to do.
That's a process you can do at home, but here's one that's a little more complicated. Zach, how did you get the scratch out of there using smart repair technology?
So there's a couple of different ways that we can go about this. When we started off, we just simply grind it through the scratch. Depending on how deep that scratch is, we can use multiple different fillers that we supply with the kit to take care of that. Things like body filler, glaze, and things like that, depending on how deep that gouge is. So once we grind that out and level that out, we're going to give it a simple primer and give out the primer and cover any imperfections or any naked metal or plastic to make sure that our paint adheres to the surface.
And we should mention you did mask it because we did an entire panel here. In other cases, you want to actually feather that and blend this into other spots, but it lends itself to masking here.
Right, exactly. So once we lay down the primer, we're going to go to the next steps of we go to our color matching system, match our color.
And with your system, how accurate do you find the paint to be matched?
You know, with our system, I like to say we're at a 95% plus. There always are variants to a color. If you have your car in certain extreme hot desert areas, you can see fading in your paint surface over the years. So when we are painting and matching that color, we do have technology to be able to match that age of that vehicle.
You lay the base coat down with the paint, and then it's time for the clear coat to finish it off.
Right.
How many coats of that?
So it's simply going to go into 2 medium coats of clear coat. The clear coat that we offer with the kit is a speed clear, and it is dry within 5 minutes.
How does this compare to something you have done at a professional body shop?
It's very similar. They're going to go through much more procedures. They would be taking off the lights. They could possibly even take off this panel to prep this area. we do it right there on the vehicle. It is simple masking around the edges and making sure we get edge to edge, and we can do that without all those high-end expenses that a body shop comes along with.
All right, as we finish pulling the masking off, that is amazing how that panel blends with the other. You can't even tell the difference. Very, very cool. Now, who are the businesses that are adding this to their repertoire?
Now, we have a lot of different clients. We have a lot of dealerships that want to take this type of service in-house. We have a lot of ceramic coating guys that before we ceramic coat it, we want to do the paint reconditioning and paint repair before we lay a hard shell over. The clear bra guys that are out there, even to the hobbyist that's in a garage.
Well, if you want to add paint repair like this to what your company can do for folks, go to CosmoRecon.com. And if you want to see more cool products like this, stay tuned because Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings, comes back in a moment. Here on Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings, just a couple segments ago, we showed you this 70s Camaro and how Danny Agoster from Steel Rubber came in and changed the door seal here and also the roof rail. Looks like new, seals even better than it did originally, and that is going to last for a long, long time. Now, Danny, we still have some work to do here in the trunk. I see you've gotten the old seal out of there. It was a mess. What was it like taking that out?
Yeah, so this seal was falling apart. Is very corroded and degrading. So I took it out and basically it's coming out in pieces. So that's the best you can do is just pull it out. And then I took my scraper tool, went around, tried to clean it up some. And then I had the 3M adhesive remover, sprayed that on, let it sit, scraped again, spray, scrape, vacuumed it all out. Now we're to a point where we've got a surface that we can glue to.
So there's no real magic to it, just a lot of elbow grease.
Yep, patience, making sure you try to get into the small spaces, just knowing that if you got something stuck under there, it's going to be blocking the weather strip you're trying to install, so you want to try to remove as much as possible.
It's not perfect, but we did a pretty good job here. Let's do a test fit here. That's the first thing we want to do to make sure we've got the right piece and make sure it's going to go in okay.
Yep, so this part just tucks into a channel, so it'll actually hold there without glue. But we'll come back and put glue just to make it permanent.
I think the person who put the original seal in here was very angry when they were using the glue. There was a whole lot of it.
There was a lot of glue. There was more than I usually see.
We'll get to that, but what's the technique when gluing? How much glue should you use when you're actually applying it?
You want to use a thin bead. The basics is you don't want a glob of glue. You basically want to put it in the channel and spread it out the best you can. I like to compare it to like a sticky note. You want to make it kind of spread out, and then you wait a little bit for it to get tacky, and then when you put the rubber in, it sticks basically immediately. And then you give it some time to cure. So once we do this, we'll leave the trunk open for a while overnight.
When we were doing the door, you mentioned this is made of the EPDM rubber. It's the same rubber that is used on fan belts and serpentine belts and that sort of thing. So it's super durable. How does that compare to the construction of the old seal that was on this vehicle?
Yeah, so this old seal in particular was made out of a blown latex. That latex material is actually a natural material. When it's a natural material, it biodegrades. And that seal will let water in and just mess up your metal and all that stuff.
I look down here and I see water was probably pooling in the trunk here. There's a big hole there. And
yeah, you can see the road from here. Water sitting in a trunk is a notorious problem. Trunk seals are probably one of the worst just because they're pretty flat and they get a lot of dirt. They're in the back of the car. So there's a lot of issues that go along with them, but you definitely want to replace it, and it's really easy to do that.
Now, lengthwise here, I see there's a little bit extra that we're going to need to trim off.
Yep, so what we'll do is we'll leave that for now, and when we come back and glue everything down, we'll cut it probably just about 1/4 inch long, and then you want to work that length back into the joint here. And what that'll do is it'll make sure that the rubber's always pressing together and not stretching and trying to pull apart.
Now, this seal is part of a kit that Steel Rubber supplies for these Camaros. How popular have you found these vehicles to be lately? And I assume that's why you put out a whole kit.
Yeah, so the second-gen Camaros are definitely growing in popularity. They've always been popular, but it's moving up in the generations. And the parts have been on the market for a long time, but there's always been issues with them, so we decided to make a steel part and make it exactly like the original was.
And there's a lot of cases out there where people may not have a classic vehicle like this. They've done a one-off. They've got a hot rod or something like that, and parts in Steel Rubber's catalog may not fit those vehicles. What's the solution for them?
We would point them towards our universal line. Essentially, it's the same quality seal, but lots of different profiles that you can apply in different places. Some of them may have a 3M adhesive back, so they're easy to install. but they're great for street rods, customs, just like you mentioned, something you're trying to make work.
Steel rubber is branched out too. It's not just about automotive seals.
Yeah, so now we have a full line of RV seals and boat seals. You know, RVs, parts that are made just for them, for the big slide outs, big, you know, rubber seals, and then boats have rub rails, essentially the bumper of the boat, all specific profiles, and we have replacement parts for those.
For us, it's just a matter of finishing up the test fit here, pull it back out, glue it back in, and we'll be good to go. Whether you have an RV, a boat, or a classic car, or even a hot rod you're building, steelrubber.com has the rubber seals you need. And we've got more cool products you need coming up right after this on Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings. Stay tuned.
Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings, is brought to you by Broad End Supply. We don't just sell them, we race them. HPA Systems, lightweight air, heavyweight performance. Resin Works, made in America, installed locally. Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. And by Mouse Blocker, protecting your vehicle from little things that cause big problems.
Let's talk about a Dorman tech tip and an OE solution that you don't want to miss. We're talking about PCV valves, positive crankcase ventilation. What do? Why do we have it? And what happens when they're not working? It's a problem. First of all, PCV, positive crankcase ventilation. You can take a look at this graphic right here. When an engine fires, you get compression up in that top of the cylinder chamber there, and some of it gets by the rings and it goes down in the crankcase. That's called blow-by. Now, once you start getting that blow-by down in there, that actually causes seals to blow out, crankcase pressure, and we don't want to let it go to the atmosphere. So what do? Well, we take the PCV valve, resuck it up, put it back into the intake manifold, and reburn it again. We keep circulating it. We want to do that. This guy controls vacuum. It's a controlled vacuum leak. Keep that in mind because I want to show you how Dorman actually fixed that problem. Pretty cool. So what's happened one of these, you can actually take it and shake it. You hear that? It's probably pretty good. Also, if it's flopping around, you may want to replace it, or if it's not actually making any noise, you want to replace it. It's a maintenance item, so check your PCV valve. Now, Dorman has a solution here you want to know about. This is all about 2012 to 19 Chevrolets and 2013 to 19, a ton of them. The 1.4 liter has a problem with the PCV valve. Now, the PCV valve is located in the intake manifold, and what happens is it becomes dislodged. And when it becomes dislodged, you get this massive amount of vacuum, way too much vacuum. What happens is the result is your valve cover diaphragm right here actually rips and pulls out. Now, the common misconception is everybody goes out and gets a valve cover and puts a valve cover on the engine. Well, that doesn't solve the problem. I've been a technician for over 20 years, and we're always looking for that root cause. Cars just don't overheat for any reason. We want to find out why it's overheating before we go replace the whole warped head. Well, Dorman has done just that. Inside the intake manifold, it's redesigned. It's redesigned that the PCV valve will never become dislodged. You're not going to have that problem again. Now, to fix the problem, you're going to have to replace the intake manifold and the valve cover. So if you do it as a pair, you're not going to have any problem anymore with the diaphragm and the valve cover, and you're never going to have another problem with your PCV valve. Now, they also have all the different hardware included with the kit. You're not making multiple stops to the parts house, and they even give you the extra hose here, because when you connect this stuff, it may break. You have a complete kit, so you're going to have no worries. And to top it off, they give you the instructions. Maybe you don't have access to a service manual. Step-by-step instructions on actually removing the intake manifold and the valve cover to do the job right. And stick with Dorman. Do the job once and do the job right. I'm John Gardner for Dorman Products. We'll see you next time for more tech tips.
Tribotex, it's kind of voodoo in a bottle. It does a lot for your car, but how it works is very sciencey.
Yeah.
And Brian Hansen, you're the lead engineer, so you speak layman too, so tell me how it works.
All right. Tiny particles, nanoparticles, not even observable under a microscope. They have a sticky side and a slippery side. These sticky sides need a lot of force, a lot of impact to cause them to fuse to a metal surface. Once these particles build up layer by layer, they create a slippery surface, which reduces that friction or impact that is used to apply it. So they only build up as much as they need, only where there's enough force. So let's take an example. We got a journal and a bearing rocking around. it's going to build up in those areas that are knocking, and it will slowly recenter that journal and bearing, and there's no more friction or impact that can apply any more nanoparticles in that area, and they just travel through the rest of the engine.
That's amazing. And here's just where it needs to go.
Only where it needs to go. It's a ceramic coating that self-applies.
Incredible. And you want a clean surface to begin with, ideally. So what's the best way to make sure that surface is clean and ready for Tribotex to adhere to it?
We recommend when you change your oil beforehand to flush it with a solvent, a cleaner. We've been developing one called BR1, and this cleans the metal surfaces. As your engine oil degrades, it can build up sludge or carbon deposits, and you don't want the nanoparticles to stick to those because those can fall off the engine. You want a nice clean metal surface, and those particles will stick there and stay for the life of the engine.
And BR1 improves itself in all kinds of other ways. What are some other applications? You've told me some of them. They're amazing.
Yeah, it's a non-toxic solvent. It's safe for using around the house. You get anything that's gooey or sticky, dissolves it very nice. You want to keep it away from your paints though. It loves to eat resins, but in an engine, resins are made from the oil degrading, and this stuff will just dissolve it and flush it out when you change your oil.
Well, Tribotex works great, and it works even better when paired with BR1. You can check them both out at tribotex.com. Well, we're going to bring this one into the finish line, but we're going to do it once again next week, and we hope you join us then. From our entire crew here at Motorhead Garage, presented by NHOU Protective Coatings, we'll see you next time.